Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Sally Pinto and I'm from the Yonkers Newark neighborhood naturally occurring retirement community. We launched back in January of 2020 and we're here to serve seniors 60 plus in Northeast Yonkers. We have lots of fun programs and activities, and we also have a lot of resources for you as well. Our programs include meditation chair yoga, body mind fitness, bingo, and any other programs that you might be interested, like arts and gardening. We have our resource specialist, Alexis Smith, who can help you with finding services and activities out there for you, as well as our nurse, Barbara Simone, who can help answer your health-related questions. We're here for you, we're here for our community, and we look forward to seeing you in our programs. Enjoy.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alexis Smith, the resource specialist with the Yonkers Newark. I'm here to help with application assistance, referrals for home delivered meals, and transportation services will be coming soon. We also offer Zoom activities and Zoom programs. And if you have any other questions or concerns, I'm here to help. Thank you so much and enjoy the program.
Welcome. I'm Barbara Simone, registered nurse. I recently retired from Westchester County's Health Department as a public health nurse. I am now here to try to assist you with any medical or preventive care issues. Enjoy this program, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
I didn't have a slide of it, so maybe it was hard to see. This is an old New Yorker cover that I just love. I mean, it just says everything about those of us who love to garden and people who don't garden but love spring. It's just, there she is, you know, happy, free. And I think a lot of us, if you've had your vaccination shots, a lot of us feel like that anyway. I went to see my 98-year-old aunt in New Jersey this last week, and I just felt like that. You know, wow, I'm in a different state, and I can see somebody, and things are starting to grow. And this picture to me just says everything. Next slide, please.
Hold on,
That's okay.
It's
everybody I Zoom with goes through this. What I thought I'd do today is start out with shots of my own garden, because right now, the time of year, I know everybody wants to buy their basil and their tomatoes and get out there, but it's way too cold, and we still have frosts there. So don't fall into that trap. I know Home Depot wants you to buy your basil, but you'll be back to buy more. So I thought, since basically this is the time of year to get the bones of your garden going. And I wanted to show you what I've done to my yard, because we all have parts that are just the bête noire of our existence. You know, you can never get them right. I live on the side of a hill in Yonkers. I'm in the middle. So if you look to your left, the street is up there. And then there's this hill in front of my house and the pathway. And to the right was the front door, the front porch of my house. So this hill, for a while there when I was younger and it was easier to take care of, looked pretty good. I tried different things. It was, when we moved in, it had Pachysandra, which I got rid of. And then we had tall ornamental grasses, which were good for the hill because it's hot and it's sunny and it doesn't absorb water very well because it's on such a slant. But that got too big and it was like a jungle. So we hacked that back. And then eventually I kind of made it a silver garden. And for several years, it looked great. It looked like this. And then, you know, I was getting older. It was hard to get up there. And we had to just get rid of this hill. Next slide, please. This is what it looked like from the other side. You can see on the right, it's starting to get a little ratty. The pathway was getting ratty. It was just not so great. The street is up on the right, so you can still, this is from the other direction. Next. So last fall, I had the guys come from Nature's Cradle and they got up there and they completely cleared the hill. And you can see how much they were doing. And you can also see how steep it is. And I just got so frustrated because none of the plants could absorb the water. Planting them was really tough. And I had basically drought tolerant plants up there. But as you know, even drought tolerant plants need water, and I would water them and then it would just bounce off the surface in the middle of the summer and just run down the hill. It was no good. Behind them, there's a railing, and on the other side of that is my driveway. So it's all steps and all steep. Next, please. That's what it looks like once they cleared the hill. And you can see the grade. It's about 45 degrees. It's tough. So they completely cleared it, and we suddenly then started again for the first time in 20 years or 30 years with a blank canvas. Next. And this is from the other end. You can see the soil wasn't really great anymore, and it was just getting rocky and just miserable. Next. So I had the guys come in, and they had built a retaining wall between my house and my neighbor's house, which was great. And that has really beautifully marinated and sort of you're going too fast here. Can you go back to the other one, please? So this is where we started. And I must say, when you first put in these railroad ties, they look like brand new sneakers. And I can't wait for it to gray up as it ages. So we now have 3 tiers. And that's the first one. They put also steps. I designed it so we have steps in the middle now, so I can get up there. And it also turns out to be a great place to sit in the winter. If you suddenly have a really sunny day, you can just sit right on the end or up higher once the steps came in. And it's really great. And I figured even if we have parties, which eventually we will again, we can use that as seating. Next, please. Okay, now the second layer is coming in. And, when you're going through something like this, it's always such a mess. You think, oh my God, but it's really, really, really very exciting. And of course they have underneath it, landscape fabric so that it won't damage the wood too much. And the great thing about it is now all these levels are completely level. The tiers are level, which is wonderful because I amended the soil. I gave them bags and bags of compost and some of my own compost, and you can buy chicken manure, and you can buy all these wonderful things that you just put in there. It's like a cake mix. You just put it in and everybody stirs it all up. And that gave me a chance to let the soil sort of marinate over the winter so that now it's nicely cooked and the plants are ready to go in once it warms up. Next slide, please. So there it is, all done. And we have 3 areas. The one near the hedge is pretty narrow, but at least it's up there. Some of these plants look a little tired, but what I decided to do was get rid of all the little ones like the sages and all the stuff on the hill that I can obviously replace. And I thought I was going to save everything, and then that just became too much to deal with. So I saved the basic big structured plants. There's an Aurelia on the right, and then there's a St. John's wort next to that. I split up some of my irises, and they're in the bottom level. And in the far distance is a hydrangea, and there's a willow, a salix behind it, and below that you can just barely see the trunk is next to the railing is a butterfly bush. So they were in there. They were big enough to keep, and they've done very well over the winter. And I've pruned them back now, and their little buds are starting to come, which is great. But it's so much neater there, and I can actually work on it. And I mulched the whole thing. Next, please. And this is from our porch from last fall. If you look straight ahead, you can see that I can see the steps and I can get up there. And it's really fun to climb up there, which I can do, and sit there and have a cup of tea. It's amazing because you see your property from a whole nother point of view. I've never been up there before other than to try to dig a plant. So it really gives you a whole new perspective. So I recommend that it's great if you can get to all 4 corners of your garden, just get in there and turn around, even if you're in the shrubs, and you suddenly see everything with a whole new point of view. And our dogs had run up and they created this dumb little path in the front here to get up to the porch. And so I thought, well, maybe I should do something with that. Next slide, please. Here it is in the fall. One of the dogs is up there. We hadn't done anything with the path, but you can see I had covered it with hay, mulched it with hay, because it was, what I do is, because I don't feel like spending a lot of money on this other than the really decent plants. I go around to all the stores that have Halloween and November, Thanksgiving displays with their bales of hay, and then they give them to me, which is great because they want to throw them out. So it's a great way to save money, get what you want, and a lot of it's already sort of started to decay. So it's kind of really ripe and ready to go on your garden. But the backlighting is really quite pretty, and it still has that new sneaker look, but you know, and it looks kind of bulky, but it'll fuzz up. All right, next please. Here it is in the wintertime. It's got a nice layer of snow, which we all call Mother Nature's blanket. And I always put lighting on my archway because it's sort of there. I call it my winter vine, and I have it up through April 1st. And it gives nice structure to the garden, and I was really happy with the bones. I'm really excited about getting it all fuzzy. Next, please. And then in the spring, I thought, you know, let's just go whole hog and fix that pathway. So you can see there's a seating area at the back, and that's the retaining wall, and it looks like the side of a barn. So I've got my father's old tools on there, none of which, of course, I use. And but that has been there several years, and it started to fade, which is great. It's nice and it blends really in well with the garden. Behind the tree that you see on the left with the 5 trunks, that's a birch. And behind it, you can still the remnants of the original hill. And I'm today, or as a matter of fact, I have to get off air at about 5:02 because the gardeners are coming today to plant that. I've also sort of lowered my standards and said, hey, you know what? I'm getting older now. I can pay people to do this for me. They do some of the big stuff. Behind that is what's green, and that's leftover mulch. It's now turned brown, which is good. Those were cuttings from some liriope or liriope. Everybody argues about how to pronounce that. And underneath all that is ornamental grasses, and they're great for hot, dry corners of your garden or sections where you just can't handle dealing with it. And they're very, very forgiving, and they're wonderful. So in the summer, they all come up, and they're about 4 feet tall, and it's just a nice architectural backdrop for everything. Next, please. So I wanted to have a brick path, and this was taken a couple of weeks ago. I wanted old bricks, which it took them a little while to find, but they did up at Bedford. They found some old bricks because I wanted this to look like it had been there forever. And I like the bricks going in one direction, so it's really, your eye really flows as opposed to sort of a herringbone pattern, which is a little more decorative. But this just traces your eye and makes it really go curvy to the right. Next, please. And the little path that the dogs had created in the Pachysandra, I had them make that brick as well. And then they put a little step at the bottom so that I can get up there without crawling around and looking like a complete idiot. Because I found with this part of this, the distance between the garden and the porch was just high enough that I just couldn't pop up there anymore. And so you have to work the design around how you're able to move and how you're able to deal with it. And then at the bottom of the steps, I have 2 pots that I found, and they will get something spectacular. Not sure what it is yet, but it's a very hot and sunny place. So we'll do something there that will really really make an entrance statement. Next, please. And here it is from the other direction. So it really flows, you know, and I've made more curves in the garden than I had. And they're a nice contrast to the very bulky, squarish tiers in the garden. So, and they move things around, so I'm not quite sure what's coming up, but we'll see. It's all very exciting because you never really know. Next, please. So that is what I've been doing in my yard. As I said, this time of year, it's very, very important to work on the bones of your garden. The tomatoes and all those things will come in later. So as I said, it's like a cake mix, and the most important part of your garden is the soil. And I spent money on the soil because it's really, really worth it. And these are basically what I put in my soil. I don't use Miracle Grow. I know that's a little controversial, but to me, it's a little like a Coca-Cola. It's not really great for you, but it boosts you if you need a sugar rush or something, but it's not really long lasting. What I like to use is organic fertilizers that are completely natural, and they dissolve over the full season. So I make this mix up and I put it in every one of my pots as well as the planting beds. First on the top left is Coast of Maine. It's a wonderful potting soil because it's made out of all the old blueberries and old lobster shells, excuse me, and all the stuff that's native to Maine that just sort of, my old bricks, they went, I got them, the Nature's Cradle bought them for me. They found them up, I think, at Bedford Stone, or it's in Bedford, but they have a whole quarry up there of something, you know, lots of different stones. So it's up in Bedford, just off the Sawmill Parkway, I think. So Coast of Maine is really rich and gorgeous, and you can put it in regular pots or in your garden, whatever you want. So that's there. And then I love the Epsoma company. You've probably seen this in your stores. They have what are called the tones. They have holly tone, which is highly acidic, which is great for your azaleas and your rhododendrons. And Westchester has very acidic soil, and that's why these shrubs do very well here. And then plant tone, which is sort of a general garden fertilizer. I don't put the holly tone where the plant is not acidic loving. So the holly tone's only for specific things like your hydrangeas. That's why they have the picture on the front. If I'm growing tomatoes, I use tomato tone. They also have flower tone and, oh my God, a whole bunch of them. And then in the lower left, I love seaweed is just best fertilizer. This, you can get it online. I got this at Amazon. This is water soluble. So you can either put it in, you know, sprinkle it into your soil. What I do is I make buckets of this stuff and then I go around and just add it to all my pots and then, you know, mix it up like, as I said, a cake mix. This you can either, or put it in, you can mix it in right as it is. It's very dark and very fine, or you can add it to a watering can and then let it, you know, dissolve it and water the plants with that. It's good to use this as a fertilizer that you can water probably once a week, not too strong. I add some kind of compost, and you can buy bags of that, you know, cow manure. They have at Rosedale Nursery, they have bat manure, bat guano. They have chicken manure. They have all sorts of stuff like that, which, you know, doesn't hurt. And then I try to get as many worms in there as possible. The great place to buy worms is Uncle Jim's wormfarm.com. They have composting worms. They have lots of earthworms, because in this new section that I've had constructed, there's some worms, but not a whole lot. And it's just going to need that. And the worms are great because they're when they go to they take a little poop there, it's all very, very healthy and very, it's good fertilizer. And they also break everything down. And they also, as they move around, they keep the soil aerated. So that's really good. So that's basically the mix that I like to put in. Next. The other thing is you're getting ready for the bones of your garden. This is a bugaboo of mine. I call it the Tuckahoe School of Meatball Shrubbery. I am not, other than a hedge, I really am not into, other than topiary, of course, but I really think shrubberies needs, particularly forsythia, needs to grow in its own natural shape. And right now you can see it as you drive around. If they've left it alone, you know, it almost looks like a ballerina. It's got lovely, its arms are going everywhere and it really makes beautiful yellow shapes. Whereas but some people really prefer to have it round, and that's okay. It's just, you're not going to get the full, I don't think the full effect of what a wisteria is supposed to do. And then during the summer, because you don't really notice it in the summer, you can then, you know, cut it back and make it look, you know, more like a little shrub. I prefer, particularly with thicker stems and with your basic shrubs, I prefer hand pruners for everything. And when you're pruning it, you just look at a little nodule, which you'll see there on the bottom, and then you cut above the nodule. And right now, that's what you do with your hydrangeas and your butterfly bushes. And I left the willow big because I need it to be big. But these are the kind of things you can prune now because they will bloom later. And they grow on old wood. So, and they won't look so leggy. Everything will be nice and compact when it grows and thick and bushy. Next, please. This is also the time of year to divide your perennials. Now, some of them, like on the top left, like snowdrops and a lot of little grasses and things like that, you can just pull them apart. They're very, very tough and they don't mind. You can also use a shovel and slice them in half and then replant them where you need them. You can cut them up into smaller bits, which again will help you save money, because let's say you want to have a nice patch of some kind of ground cover, which is on the right there. Looks a little bit like sage. I'm not sure what it is. It's hard to tell from the picture. You can just slice that up into different little groups and then plant them together, and boom, you've got a whole new patch. You can also use a knife, which I do sometimes. Sorry, sorry, the guy's late. That's okay. You can use a knife. I think that looks like iris to me on the left. And you can also use your pruning shears to just go in there and cut it apart, because plants, perennials particularly, do like to be divided every couple of years. They need to breathe. Some of them grow, for instance, with ornamental grasses, they grow in a circle, and then the middle becomes dead. So you can hack these things up. They're perennials, they're happy, hardy, and you can smack them around and it's okay. And they'll give you the rewards. Next. And here's some ideas. What people say, well, what do you mean by bones of the garden? Well, it's basically the big structural elements. It's not the geraniums in the pots or the little pretty vines you're going to put in. It's the big stuff. So if this is the time of year to plant an ornamental tree, if you're interested, and it should go in a really significant spot because it's going to be pretty and not blend in with everything else. This is the time to also plant new shrubs if you'd like to buy some new ones. Maybe block out a view of your neighbors. And sometimes when you move into a house, the shrubs in the front have been ignored for 1,000 years, and particularly yews and things like that. And they get big and leggy and not so attractive. And you might want to put new ones around. Pathways, obviously, that's what I've done, and you saw me do that. And this one looks particularly nice because it started to get fuzzy and colorful. If you have birdhouses, this is the time to get them up to and figure out where's a good spot for birdhouses. I have 13 birdhouses, but not all of them get filled up. And right now the tenants are fighting over the real estate as to who gets which house. Pretty cute. They do not like to be attached to trees, birds, because it's too easy for a squirrel or a predator to get up there. They like to be on a pole, or I have some of them on the columns on my porch because they're smooth and nobody can climb up there. And it's best if they're at least 10 feet away. I'm not a bird expert, but I know about this because I read about it when I was putting up all my birdhouses. And these are the kind of things, you don't need a degree in gardening or anything. And I am not a master gardener. I have taken classes myself, but a lot of it's just your own, I always say my garden is my laboratory. You do it and learn from it yourself. And if you're interested in it, you'll learn about it, read about it, and watch TV shows about it. If any of you get BritBox, I don't know if you do, but there's a show on there called Gardener's World. I've talked about it before. It's absolutely fabulous. It's been on British TV for about 55 years, and it comes in we get it every Friday evening. And it's really, really educational and helpful. And then also think about where you want to put your outdoor seating and what the arrangement's going to be. I try to mix mine up a little bit every year. Outdoor rooms are just fantastic. They are what makes my garden. I only have 1/8 of an acre. I don't have a lot of room, but I don't have a lawn. I got rid of it. And it makes all the difference in the world. I mean, I have a husband now who doesn't want, he can't right now, but he certainly wasn't interested in mowing in the old days. And, you can change your seating around so that different people get different views of your garden. And particularly if you put something new in, it's nice to mix it up. It's like rearranging your living room every once in a while. It keeps you from getting stale. Next, please. This is you can make little drawings of what you want to do. Now, this was, I made a sketch. This was a neighbor of mine who needed some new design ideas. And it's really great if you can just scratch it out on paper. It doesn't have to be artistic. It doesn't have to be beautiful. Nobody's going to see it. But this way you can sort of map out what's a tree, what's a shrub, what do you think will look well next to something else. It gives you sort of a bird's eye view. And you can put in what's already there, and then you can sort of fill in what's not there. And if you change your mind, all you have to do is either erase it or throw it in the trash. And you don't have to pay some garden landscape designer a lot of money to make a plan that you think, that's not really what I wanted. So you have to really ask yourself a lot of questions about what you want to do. In previous discussions that we've had, I have sent out a questionnaire of all the things you need to ask yourself about what you want to get out of your garden. What's the traffic pattern going to be? Who's going to use it? What are your sun patterns? What do you want to get out of it? And what do you like? What colors do you like? What colors do you hate? You know, you need to ask yourself a lot of these questions. Next. And the other thing you can do, which is fun and cheap and easy, is to take photographs of your yard. And then when you scan them or when you print them out, do it on a very gray. Don't do it as it looks in as it looks in your camera. Make it gray. I mean, you can still see what you've got. And then with a crayon or a magic marker or something, just scratch in what you think you might like to have. Again, nobody's going to see this. This was for a client because she wasn't very visual, and that's fine. But we were suggesting viburnum. So what I did was I made a quick sketch of where I thought it might go, because she has a big bare spot, as you can see. And then I showed her different pictures of different kinds of viburnum, so she knew what I was talking about. And then you can make little notes about whether you thought it ought to be good or not, or what do you think you needed to do. So it's very important to keep taking notes, because believe me, you forget. Next, please. In the back, she had this lovely layered garden and little wonderful stones and some furniture there on the right, but she had a garden bed there, kind of like what I just built. And as I said, mine would have been made out of stone, but that's very expensive. So I went with a railroad ties that will age. But she had stone. And I suggested she just fill it with fabulous perennials that are different colors and different shapes and different sizes. So I just, scribbled those in. And it gave her an idea of what she could do, as I said, without having to spend lots of money on beautiful drawings. This way, it's clear what's going on. And you can then see, well, maybe I don't want any spiky ones, and she also liked blues and purples. So that's why I did all that there. But again, it makes it quick and easy and not good. You just do another one. Next, please. She had a funny little plot outside of her, this client that I had, a funny little plot outside of a porch there. And it was scruffy and it's got not so much sun on the left, and she had an old fence in the background with a tree. And I said, well, why don't you just make a plot of black-eyed Susans, because she loves those. And again, if you're doing outdoor sort of more architectural things, it's better if you do one kind of plant and do a lot of it. And that is much better than if we had put in 15 different things in one little corner there, because that which we would do on that curved area we saw earlier, because there's tables and chairs there and you would be sitting next to them and you could really look at them. This is more of a walk by space. So it's more of a architectural statement than it is a horticultural statement. So this way she gets a nice big patch of yellow that she can see from all across the garden. And it softens the corner. Next, please. Again, a funny little plot next to the garage. Got a lot of shade. Not great soil, sorry. But a little rock. It had a little level there with some rocks underneath it. And just take some kind of azalea, like I recommended an azalea because they love it shady. Just amend the soil, put a whole bunch of azaleas in there, and then all of a sudden she's got a nice, really bright corner. Again, this is not a spot where you would put lots of different for horticultural samples. You just need one that's multiplied, and it really makes a nice statement, and it softens up the garage. And it also, you don't see a dead spot. Next, please. This was for a client years ago, and she had a pool and a whole bunch of things. It's just another example that you can really plot the whole thing out. I mean, this had to be a little more formal because, she was a client and really needed ideas. But again, this was not, it was pretty quick. It didn't take me too long to do this. And you can just change whatever she doesn't want. But people, it's very hard. Sometimes they can't sort of see it as a bird would see it, or you're looking over it. I think, for instance, now with drones, I know in movies and things, they use a lot of drone shots, and you get a lot of overhead shots, which really sort of help you out and orient you to the space. So that's why just drawing it this way, it really helps people out. Next. Very important to keep a gardening diary. The top left one, obviously, mine started out that way, and then now I just scribble things in like the bottom. But you know, you can make lots of pretty pictures and lots of little notes. You can also put your seeds, and a lot of times I save my the cards that come with your plants that give you instructions of what to do, or collecting seeds in little containers. You can do it really formally like that. That's a good way to keep that stuff. Or as you said, you know, I said you can just take the bottom, just take a good old notepad and scribble in what you need. And it's particularly good to do this. I always do this at the end of August, early September, because, well, September basically, because that's when you really, everything's kind of very familiar. You're kind of tired of gardening at that point, and you can sit down very quietly with a cup of tea or a bourbon or whatever is for you, and just write it all down. What worked, what didn't work, what ideas you had that maybe you should put into next year. Because I have found that I remember a lot of it, but there are things you forget, like, oh, that was a great idea. Why didn't I see that? Or you'll be watching a show and somebody will mention, like on Gardener's World, a plant you never heard of before that you think, wow, that's a great idea. Scribble it down, just write it down. And sometimes you only have a piece of paper near you, scribble it down and a Post-it note and slap it in the book. It's just very important to keep a gardening diary, and you can do it in any style you want. Obviously, just a regular notebook will work, a plain where you can paint on it, or, you know, they can go to stores and get really fancy, cute ones, which are also kind of fun. Next. Oh, that's the end. There you go. Whoops.
That was great. I know that people always private chat Z, but I'm gonna go with the public chats here. Marianne Penzero said, thank you, Z and YPL, for helping make my garden grow. But there was a question. Yeah. Where did you purchase your old bricks?
Bedford, New York. I didn't, well, I paid for them. The Nature's Cradle guys went up and got them. And Bedford, they have old bricks up there, probably from old estates that have been knocked down. But I also put in my garden old gardening equipment if I can find it, like a plow here and there, make something very interesting, or my father's old tool. You know, they blend in nicely with the faded railroad ties, but they also give a nice texture about farming.
Then the next one, what type of soil grows what type of plants? And what about composting?
Oh, well, let's see. The better the soil, the better your plants. It's a little like if you eat at McDonald's all the time, you're not going to be very healthy. You always put a $5 plant into a $50 hole. So that, but if it's an acidic plant, that's when you start making sure that it's got the holly tone in it, and you can take coffee grounds and sprinkle them around the bottom of your plant. If it's something like a hydrangea and you want it to be more purple, then you put more lime in it. It depends. You have to look on you have to read about your plant and look at the little tag that comes with it. But basically, general good gardening soil will work with everybody.
So I have a question. I know
there was a second part to that. I'm sorry. There was a second part. What was the second part?
What about composting?
Oh, that's another thing you can do that, again, I mean, some people think this is nuts, but I know several people who do it. I have a composting unit in my backyard. Now mine, because we're near the river and we get rats sometimes, I can't leave it out. Other people, you have to look up on composting that you can do it in different sections. You can do it in a tumbler, which is what I've got. I take in my kitchen, back up. On my kitchen table, I have a container, and in it, I put all my vegetable remains. But you have to take out the apple stems. You have to take out like anything that's hard, like a stem, like on the top of a pepper or a banana, you have to cut that off. But everything else just goes in there. And at the end, when it starts to get full, what I do to speed up the process is I throw it in my with some water. I throw it into my food processor, and you sort of whir it all around, and it becomes like garbage gazpacho. And then you just go out simply and pour it around the base of your plant. I mean, you make a little ditch and then you pour it around the base of your plant. Or you can use your composter and just pour it in your composter and then take a layer of leaves. Because compost is a layer of green and then a layer of brown, layer of green and a layer of brown. So brown would be old leaves, hay, things like that. The green would be your food waste, only no dairy, only, and no meat, obviously, only vegetation.
I know that Marianne Penzero said, thank you, Catherine. I also use tools and wheelbarrows for decorations. Mary said, how deep do you have to dig if you want to supplement the soil around established plants?
Around established plants, I go down. Well, you don't want to disturb the roots of the little guys who are already there. Sometimes you just sort of scratch it in. Particularly now, there are a lot of shrubs that just need a boost, and you don't want to scratch too deep because you don't want to disturb anything. So you just sort of just scrape around or dig around, not right next to the base of the plant, but out a bit. I would say, 4 inches or so. Just get it in there, and it'll dissolve and work its way down.
Okay. Do you have a recommended water hose or sprinkler? When are the best times to water?
The best time, well, I don't have a lawn, so I don't have I do have a sprinkler, but it helps me garden. It helps me if it's a really, really hot day. I can cover pretty much a lot of my garden if I put the sprinkler in the middle of the path and then it just does this. It's best to water in the morning. And that's the general rule, because if you do it at night, mold can grow. However, when it's the middle of July and it's 112 in Yonkers, I water stuff at night so that it really can absorb the water and it's ready to meet the dawn. But that's only when it's just so hot you can't stand it. And there are days, depending on where you live, you have to water in the morning and the evening, depending on what your plants are sitting on. I mean, I had a friend who had a beautiful garden on a rooftop in Manhattan, but she watered in the morning and she watered at night because it's hot up there. And the hose, I prefer, there's no great hose because they get knotted up and they're big and heavy, but I use, you can find them online, I can't remember exactly where, but they're thin. They're about the width of my finger. And they come in pretty colors, and some gets twisted up, but they're light, you can carry them, like I have 100 feet, one for the front, one for the back, and they're not that heavy. It's great. And the best nozzles I use are by Green Thumb, I believe. They're plastic, but they have wonderful choices. And they really do whatever it says. It is. If it says shower, it's a shower, and it's gentle. It's not hysterical. If it says stream, boy, you can really stream it. Many people I find get the really expensive stuff, and I have to buy one of these every year because I go to the hardware store and it's for $7. I get 2 new ones. But they work well. They're plastic and they're green. Green Thumb is the product, the company.
And the sprinklers, any particular sprinklers?
I just got your basic sprinkler from the hardware store, I think.
Okay. Is it worth it to buy plants and flowers from either Home Depot or Lowe's?
Yes and no. It depends what you buy. They're good for you can get some shrubs there. You don't know where it comes from, and you're not they're just selling in mammoth quantities. I do buy herbs there. Herbs don't have to be spectacularly, unique. Herbs are good there. Lots of bedding plants are good. Like if you want a lot of impatiens, you can get some lovely hanging baskets there. Yeah, you just have to look around, but they'll push things on you that are wrong at this time of year, like the basil and the tomatoes. I mean, it's just going to be unbelievable. And be sure you get, and sometimes people will be able to know, it's important to go to a nursery that can answer questions for you. But yeah, there are moments, I definitely go to Lowe's. I can't deal with Home Depot, but I love Lowe's, and they're very nice because it's nearby. And yeah, you can get things there. I just wouldn't get your signature plants there unless, every once in a while you think, oh, wow, look at that. I mean, they had some canna last year that were great. I really shop around. One of my favorite nurseries is Carlson's Farms. It's right off 100B going up the Sprainbrook. Not huge, but really lovely plants. She has some unusual things, very healthy because it's family owned, and that makes a big difference to me.
Nice.
Patients or something, and then just get a flat from somebody.
People are starting to grow things inside before they plant them outside. They are starting now. Am I too late to start? What should I be planting now in small pots so that I can be ready to plant into my garden?
I've never started seeds indoors because I don't have a house that has a lot of bright sun and I don't have lights or anything like that. So I never do the seed thing unless I can plant the seeds outside when it's warm enough. What I do start every year inside are the canna and the elephant ears because I love them in my garden. They get really big. And again, they're great in the distance because it's just, they're huge and I get different colored ones and it's just a nice backdrop. But those, I started those about 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. And they're just not pretty right now. They're all sitting in these pots in my living room in a window that's sunny, but little things are starting to come up because anything that's tropical really can't go out until early June.
How much compost should I put in the soil for my vegetables? And I'm going to add on to that because you showed the different pieces, worms. Is there like some mathematical thing, 2 for 1, 3 of this, or? But I'm going to add, but on top of that, just how much compost should I put in the soil for my vegetables?
Your vegetables should be planted in very rich soil because they grow quickly and they're very nutritious and you're going to be eating them. So I don't really think there's, well, I don't cook this way either. I don't bake. I wish I did, but I don't because everything's very exact. I kind of just, what looks good to me. I would say a good cup full around the base of each plant, like if you're doing tomatoes, yeah, just like a good cup, a good solid handful, and then you can sort of look and mash it around and say, oh, okay, yeah, I think I could use a little more. You can't over compost.
If someone purchased tulips that have already bloomed, is it worth it to plant the bulbs? If so, how does one do this?
Tulips, they have to die back first. Yeah, you can save them over the winter, sure. Or they can, well, okay, do you buy the tulips? Buy bulbs. I mean, if you start them in the house, let them die back and winter them over. And then you can plant them in the fall, yeah, I would guess. I don't know.
All right, she's still typing. I'm going to go to the next, which is kind of related. Someone gave me a daffodil in a pot for Easter. What can I do with this to prep it to go into my garden?
You can, right now, it's daffodils. You could just take it out of the pot and put it right in the garden because little daffodils are blooming right now. And they can handle the cold weather.
Okay, it's Daffodil Hill in your town garden. So Sumi continued, someone bought this for me for Easter. So it's the same thing. What do we do with the tulip that she got for Easter?
You could put that outside. It's maybe a little early. No, I would wait a week and put the tulips out, pot and all. I wouldn't try to don't try to disturb the soil. Just try to make the soil as compact as possible. Put it in the garden.
Okay. Are there any community gardens for those of us that have no yard and would like to grow plants? That could be a Z question as well.
Yeah. I mean, some of the apartment houses around me have little allotments for people who can use them.
Lucy has a community garden near Lucy from the Greystone. It's close to Riverfront Library. We can get the information for people. She's an amazing gardener. She gardens with it. They have a community garden in Yonkers near Riverfront Library.
Good to know. I don't really know.
And we're working on, we got a grant, Ruth Walter is here. We actually got, we wouldn't say a grant, we got a contract. That's the proper word. I want to use the right words. We got a wonderful contract from Westchester County to develop some of the space at the Will Library. So we'll be talking more about community gardening. We'll be talking more about green spaces. We're going to call together a program. We're going to talk to the Y as well. We're going to try to get different community groups who have some space to see what we can do and look at vacant lots around Yonkers. And that's like a citywide thing to talk about. So we need to talk to the youth, the mayor's youth advisory board, and then we have a green committee in Yonkers. So this is a question that we're going to be posing to them. And because this is not the first time that people are asking about community gardens, so it is a great thing to do, and we need to provide more infrastructure for this.
The other thing you can do, that sounds fantastic. And the other thing you can do if you're in the neighborhood, there sometimes are little plots that the city may own, that, because we did this in our neighborhood. There are little plots that are really city land, and you can get together with your neighbors and make sure the Parks Department knows about this, and you can plant them up. We have at the bottom of my hill, we have a triangular plot that was actually is owned by the neighbor, but the neighbor's more than happy to let us garden with it. We have now the garden sign and the light and everything. It's quite pretty. I know in Cedar Knolls, they have like a funny little, in traffic intersections, they'll have funny little triangular triangular areas. And you can, the neighbors can get together and plant it and make it look good.
So we also have in the comments, we have Sumi wrote, she knows of a community garden on Walnut Street and Yonkers Avenue, right off the old Croton Aqueduct. And I'm trying to look up this Greystone garden that Lucy has been planting. It says Greystone officially opened the 7th community garden at 128 Oak Street in Yonkers. So there's one there. So yeah, we'll work on compiling a list and put it on the YPL website as a blog post. This is really great. We really appreciate these questions. Keep them coming.
Yeah. The other thing you can do is talk to if you're near stores like I am, you and your neighbors can ask the store owners if they would like to have plantings in front of their stores. My friend Ann works in front of the Pondfield Cafe down there. She put up stuff. Sometimes they'll help you pay for it. Sometimes you have to pay for it yourself. But if you're creative, it won't take a lot. And it just makes the stores look really pretty.
Right. And then Wally wrote in the chat, there's a link to the Greystone.org community garden. So thank you, Wally, for doing that. Much appreciated.
Going back to Lowe's and Home Depot, they're great for pots because they're not very expensive. And if you need a big urn, you need older kind of pots, they are really good for that.
So there was another question about Home Depot, whether someone should buy raspberry plants from there or from somewhere else.
That's fine. I'm sure that's fine.
And Wally had a question, elephant ears, and how to you spell the first one. So it must have been something you mentioned before.
It's called colocasia, C-O-L-O-C-S-I-A, colocasia.
C-O-L-O.
C-A-S-I-A, colocasia.
Okay.
Colocasia. It's a C it's C-O-L-O-C. Not D. Okay, C-O-L-O. C-O-L-O-C-A. All right, let me write this down. Wait a minute.
All right, so this is turning into a spelling Zoom, like we have.
All right, I got it.
This is great.
C-O-L-O-C-A-S-I-A.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna have a competition,
9 letters.
right? All these gardening terms and spelling them. We should do that. That would be a lot to have a spelling bee. Anyway, yes, Teresa has a really important
pronunciation.
question.
All pronounce things differently. Colocasia, I just ordered a whole bunch this morning. They winter over well. They're slow to get going, but they winter over well, and they come in unbelievable colors, and some are spotted, some are liney, and some are green, and they make big statements, and they solve a lot of problems.
Okay. So why can't we use the apple core or pepper stem in our compost? Is it because it won't break down into the soil?
No, put it in your compost. Just don't put it in your food processor. It'll kill your food processor.
Oh, okay.
Because I whir it all around so it makes the soup, and then that'll kill your processor. Otherwise, it'll break down. But it's tough, so if you just throw it in the compost, it'll take forever because it's hard.
Hi, everyone. This is Z from Yonkers Public Library. Thanks so much to Sally Pinto and Alexis and Barbara from Newark. Thank you to our community partners, WJCS, the City of Yonkers Office for the Aging, Westchester County Legislator Ruth Walter, Friends of Crestwood Library, and Yonkers Public Library for making this phenomenal partnership. And we thank each and every one of you for being part of our wellness community. Be well, stay well.